everybody. Welcome back to the Business Growth Made Simple podcast. I am Steve, your host, and I want to talk about something that keeps popping up in every Facebook group, every alignable conversation, and honestly, almost every coffee shop where two dreamers are sketching their business ideas on napkins. And it's all about startup money. How do I get it? Where should it come from? Should I borrow it? Should I take on investors or a partner? Should I sell a kidney on the black market to get one? All right, that one really hasn't come up yet. But lately, all the groups have been buzzing around, and I've seen the pattern play out over and over and over again. Somebody asks, how did you start your business? Did you borrow money? Who'd you borrow it from? Suddenly, 200 comments flood in. Half say, nope, don't borrow money. That was the death of my first business. Most of the other half said, I wish I hadn't borrowed. My second business succeeded because we grew it slow and steady with cash. And then you get inspiring stories like the last one I saw the other day. It said I started with $36 and hit $300,000 in 1 year. Or the one I read right after that said I bought a used pressure washer and built a $600,000 business in 18 months. I love those stories because they remind me of something simple, something America is built on. Pull your bootstraps up and get to work, because most great businesses didn't start with a pile of money. They started with a problem worth solving, and they found a solution, and they went out into the world with the solution. Today we're going to unpack the real thing around startup money. We're not doing business theory. It's not a lecture school. And this is straight from everyday people who've lived the experience of millions of small business. And there's tons of research to back it up. The failure rates, they're brutal. According to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 20% of businesses fail in the first year, 50% by the fifth year, and 65% fail by the 10th year. And the number one cause has nothing to do with marketing or competition or bad ideas, not even the bad economy, has everything to do with cash flow problems. 82%, according to a U.S. bank study, 82% of businesses fail because of cash flow problems. Not enough cash, too much debt, too many payments, not enough margin for mistakes. You know, researchers at MIT and the Kauffman Foundation found something really fascinating. Businesses that start with borrowed money fail at a significantly higher rate than those started with cash. And the reasons, they're not complicated. Borrowed money increases the pressure on the owners and the people running it. The pressure leads to bad decisions. The debt payments choke the early profits. Owners feel like they're rushed to scale. And mistakes get bigger and faster. The business, it's got to run almost perfectly from day one. And let's be honest, there's no small business that runs perfectly from day one. If perfection is a requirement, you're cooked. You know, cash-funded startups, they will grow slower, but cleaner, more strategic. Businesses that start with cash and grow at the speed of cash, they're going to learn their market better. They're going to be more accurate with who they serve. They're going to be able to pivot faster if they need to. They're going to build smarter operations, avoid financial strain, take fewer risks, and build profit earlier. And they typically survive longer. But they don't look flashy at first, but they last. But Steve, doesn't debt help you grow faster? Well, it can. But here's the question. Do you really want to grow fast? Or do you want to grow strong? Fast growth businesses fall hard. They strong growth businesses last for decades. Look at the stories you've seen in these groups. This business financed with loans, it collapsed. The second attempt with cash only plan thrived. Not just survived, it thrived. The business that started with $36, it exploded. And the business that started with equipment debt, it suffocated and died off. Money doesn't fix a lack of clarity. Money doesn't fix a lack of leadership. Money doesn't fix bad margins. Money does not fix bad systems. And debt definitely doesn't fix any of those. But if your business model doesn't work small, it's definitely not going to work big. So today I want to walk you through the truth about startup capital, the stats nobody talks about, why debt kills more startups than it helps, the psychology of borrowed urgency, how scrappy businesses outgrow funded ones, how to start lean and small, the mindset shift that changes everything, what growing at the speed of cash looks like, why small beginnings are powerful, and how to build a business that lasts. It's not going to be one of those episodes where you walk away thinking, I don't need as much money as I thought. I need more clarity and more discipline. So let's jump in. The myth of I need more startup money. It's one of those biggest lies in modern entrepreneurship. You need a big chunk of money to start a business. You know what? Ask 100 new founders why they haven't started yet. 60 of them will say, I don't have the money. But when you look at the data, something surprising emerges. Almost 65% of all small businesses started with less than $10,000 capital. That's according to the Federal Reserve Small Business Credit Survey. What's even more shocking is 22% of them started with less than $1,000. You know what they didn't have? That's right, money. You know what they did have? A skill, a problem to solve, a customer who needed help, courage, willingness to start imperfectly, a refusal to wait until everything looked perfect. You don't need money to start. You just need momentum. You need clarity. Money helps you expand a working system. It doesn't help you create one. And here's the bottom line. Money multiplies whatever you already are. If you're organized, you'll be more organized. If you're sloppy, you get sloppier. Just with nicer tools. Money doesn't create discipline. It magnifies habits, good or bad. Think of it this way. Company A was cash funded. Started with $300 of their own money. They built a simple offer. They got customers early. They learned quickly about who they wanted to serve. They fixed mistakes in real time. They grew slowly, and they generated a profit early. Versus the second company, they were funded by a loan. They borrowed $25,000. Because they had the money, they went out and bought equipment that they didn't even have customers for yet. They got themselves a fancy logo, built a website before learning who they were going to serve. Scale before they stabilized. They spent half their revenue on payments and almost no room for mistakes. Who's going to learn faster? Company A. Which one's going to be more resilient? Again, Company A. And which one can survive a slow start? Yeah, you guessed it. Company A. Why is that? Because cash-funded founders build business models that are actually based on reality, not a pie in the sky. Loan-funded founders build business models based on hope and a prayer. And hope in the business world is not a strategy. The one failure rate nobody wants to talk about is by the money source. According to research from Kauffman Foundation, MIT, SBA, Federal Small Business Survey, Harvard Business Review, businesses that started with personal savings or small cash reserves survive longer than businesses started with loans. Why? Well, again, the loan repayments eat your early profits. Did you know the average startup for a service business doesn't make a profit for the first 6 to 18 months? Or retail for the first 12 to 30 months? It's even worse for restaurants. The average restaurant startup is 18 to 36 months. Why? Because while the revenue isn't there, the payments, they start next month. Debt creates pressure. Pressure creates panic. A loan turns early learning into emergency decision making. We need customers now. Drop the price, do whatever it takes. Say yes to everything. Take that nightmare client even though we don't like working with them. Oh, we need to spend more on some ads. Oh, we're overstaffed. And then you wind up overpromising and under-delivering. Debt makes you impatient. Impatience destroys judgment. Owners lose the optionality. With cash, you can pivot quickly. With debt, you might be locked in. And borrowed money leads to overspending. Business owners spend borrowed money at 2 to 3 times faster than they'll spend their own cash. Cash brings discipline. When it's gone, it's gone. Debt brings more carelessness. Debt forces premature scaling. You're going to feel the pressure to hire, advertise, rent some space, buy some equipment, expand, add services. But scaling a broken system is just going to create a bigger, more of a headache broken system. It's going to create more stress. Cash creates a focus. When you grow at the speed of cash, you're forced to start small. Test an offer. Listen to your customers. Make changes, improve, build profit early, and learn the business from the inside out. These are all habits that create longevity. Growing at the speed of cash, you expand only when profit allows it. You don't grow because you're excited, you're impatient, someone else is doing it, so I have to, or you want to look bigger. You grow when the money is there to support it. And here's why it works so well. Cash growth creates smart decisions. Every expense gets questioned. Every hire matters. Every ad needs a return. Every purchase is intentional. Discipline is built. It's not bought. Cash growth keeps you humble. You don't imagine yourself as a CEO with a corner office. You're the owner, the operator, the salesperson, the marketer, the chief cook, the bottle washer, and the janitor. That humility is an advantage, not a limitation. Cash growth gives you time to learn. You'll discover which customers you love to work with, which ones are a drain, what pricing works, what breaks often, what do I need to change, what customers value, what your real bottlenecks are. Borrowed money forces you to skip these lessons. And cash growth builds a better foundation. Let me give you a picture. When a tree grows slowly, an oak tree, the roots go down deep into the ground. But when a tree like a pine tree grows unnaturally fast, its roots stay shallow. One storm can wipe it out. Cash builds the deep roots. Debt builds the tall but shallow businesses. Cash growth makes your business anti-fragile. In other words, You don't just survive a hardship, you get stronger from that hardship. Every setback is a lesson, not a threat. Your cash growth helps you sleep at night. You don't have to worry about creditors. No late payments, no 3 a.m. How am I going to cover payroll moments? Or there shouldn't be if you're doing your cash right. Your business becomes peaceful. Your business supports your life, not the other way around. And cash growth gives you a margin to fail small. Because let's face it, you will make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Cash gives you room for an imperfect start. Debt demands perfection. It's not possible. And think about it. Those amazing $36 to $300,000 stories, they're all inspiring, but here's the secret. It wasn't the $36. It was the discipline that came from not having more than the $36. Great businesses rise from scarcity because scarcity forces creativity. It forces efficiency. It forces hustle. It forces a focus. It forces you to problem solve. It forces you to be accountable. And then abundance flows. As you bring stuff in, you feel that you can let go of more stuff because more is going to come in. You're going to open your hands up more. You become more aware of the abundance that's out there. There's 5 types of startup funding, and there's one that wins hands down. There's the loans and the financing, the banks, credit cards, microloans, equipment financing, whatever it takes. Buy a new truck, you finance the truck. And the pros are fast access to capital. It lets you buy equipment quickly. And it helps you if you already have demand. But remember, those payments start immediately. You get 30 days before the payments due typically. Stress, for me, skyrockets. It forces you to get bigger earlier, scale quicker. It slows down any kind of pivot you may have. It requires you to be perfect. And you can easily overspend. There's a huge high failure rate. Now, the verdict is it's fine for expansion if you want to go that route, but it's terrible for starting your business. Number 2, there's investors, angel investors, partners, equity deals. The pros are you get cash without a payment. You get strategic help sometimes. But the cons, you're going to lose some or a lot of control. You're going to lose part of the ownership. Autonomy. Often, it's misaligned expectations. This I recommend avoiding unless absolutely necessary. Then there's grants. Free money from the government or nonprofits. The plus side of this is, well, they're free. There's no repayment, and they help your cash flow. The downside is to get them can be very competitive. The process can be very slow, can be very complicated, and like the others, it doesn't fix a broken model. The verdict is it's a nice bonus, but I wouldn't use it for startup. And then you have your personal savings, working from your own cash. Pros? No payments, except back to yourself. No pressure. You don't have to make that payment every month. You have total control. And it's clean, simple growth. Now, the drawback is it may be slower. It's going to require discipline, and it's going to require boundaries. This is the best option for long-term success. Then you have those crowd-funded startups, right? This business is funded by either deposits, pre-sales, early customers, small contracts, low overhead. This is one of my favorites if you want to build a business with your cash and startups. So let's say you're a painter. You can get deposits from people on paint jobs before you have started the work. Get them on the schedule, collect a deposit, and now you've got a little bit of working cash to buy the paint, to buy the rollers, get the one job done, collect for that, go to the next job, and you start building it slowly, and then you start to hire people. I mean, this is how a lot of handyman, consultants, landscapers, cleaners, creatives, retailers, they actually build the business this way. And this is a great way to start because you're still going to grow with cash. You're going to scale with cash, and you're going to protect your business with cash. Now, how to start lean and smart. These steps work, and it doesn't matter what business you're starting, whether you're starting landscaping, design agency, coaching business, painting, marketing, cleaning, consulting, product-based, handyman, bakery, bookkeeping, whatever it is. Here's the rule. You want to start small. You want to start simple, and you want to start now. Because the best time to start something is today. You want to validate the business. Talk to 10 to 20 people who might actually buy. Not mom, not your cousin, not your Facebook friends, real potential buyers. You want to sell the vision first. Create the minimum viable version of your service or product. Get a paying customer quickly. Don't build the perfect website and don't spend 3 months creating a logo. Sell first, polish later. And then you want to deliver. Make adjustments. Improve your offer. Document what's working. Track your margins. And then reinvest. You want to make sure you take money for yourself to pay your bills. But then when you're done that, you've got money set aside for taxes and bills. Then you want to start reinvesting your money to start building things up for better processes, maybe better tools, maybe some ads, maybe training, maybe improvements. Raise prices as you improve. Pricing is a journey. As you get better, start raising them. Number 6, you want to use time instead of money. Before you spend money on ads, software, tools, and systems, ask yourself, can I solve this with my time right now instead of money? Early on, the answer is most likely yes. Now, there's 2 types of entrepreneurs here. And this is the mind shift that typically changes everything. Type 1 says, I need money to solve this. They stay stuck. They wait. They're scared. They wait some more. And they never get started. But then you got type 2 who says, I just need to get clear. And I don't need the money. I can make that work later. And they just get started. They learn. They grow. They adapt. They succeed. I mean, money doesn't reduce risk. Clarity is going to reduce your risk. Think about that handyman. Let's say you're good at electrical work. You can change outlets, switches. Just do some basic electrical for people until you get some more money to learn more things. When you grow at the speed of cash, you learn to think creatively, outside the box. You make good decisions typically. You're going to question your expenses. Do I really need to buy that? You're going to protect your margins, and you're going to build an early profit. These are leadership skills. These are stewardship skills. Luke 14 in the New Testament says, count the cost before you build. It doesn't say borrow the money. It doesn't say guess at the cost. It says count it. Understand it. Prepare for it. Plan it. And when you approach businesses this way, debt stops looking like a shortcut and it starts looking like a trap. Now, if you're listening to this right now thinking, wow, I've been waiting to start my business because I thought I needed money, or I started with borrowed money and now I feel the pressure. I see what you're saying. Or I wish I could start the right way. Take a deep breath. Here's the truth. You don't need what you think you need. You don't need a loan, an investor. You don't need imperfect branding. You don't need a giant marketing budget, and you don't need a fancy website. You don't need everything figured out. You need to get clarity. You need customers. You need a simple offer, an easy way for people to do business with you. You need a willingness to learn. You need to be disciplined, make time, have patience. You need some cash and the wisdom to grow at the speed of cash. That's the winning formula. The businesses that survive are not the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the most clarity and keep the most money, the most grit, the most discipline, the most willingness to start and grow smart. And if you're ready to build that kind of business, one that doesn't just look successful, but is actually profitable, stable, and peaceful with less stress, then I want to invite you into something really powerful. In January, we're kicking off our 90-day accelerator. We have a few spots sold already, and we're only taking 12. Business owners are hungry for clarity. They're tired of chaos. They want systems that work. They want accountability, and they want a plan. And if you want to be in on that success early next year for the next cohort, if you want to change, a chance to get in and change before it fills up, I invite you to join the wait list, reach out to us. While you're waiting, don't wait to start. Don't wait for a loan. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the stars to align. Start with what you've got where you are, but be disciplined and grow at the speed of cash, even if that means you're starting part-time, working your full-time job and doing this on the side, nights and weekends. Because the business you build slowly with clarity will be the business you're proud of later. Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. I'll see you on the next episode of Business Growth Made Simple.